Reborn and Team Frost. Yesterday, the trend, and the trend seems to have been for quite some time now, it feels like, Gems. Support bans seem to be a very high priority, specifically Decker and Bellica have been I would say, anecdotally, the most frequently banned out heroes so far.
Bellica goes in both roles. She can be a support and also the mid laner, so that's why you see her banned quite often. It's a cross-role hero. You even see her in the off lane occasionally, and removing her from the field removes a number of different sort of flex picks they can do for both sides.
Draft moving along here, we see Grux picked up from Reborn. I think Grux right now is just considered the go-to jungler. Obviously, with the new jungle, it's not quite as it has much smaller room for error when it comes to kiting those camps. Obviously, Grux is very good at just cutting those camps down as quickly as possible, rotating over around level 2, level 3, or having a little bit of stagger timing right before the buff or right after the 3-minute mark, which we've seen a lot of teams start to transition to, and Grux really fits into that spot very well. Muriel, another hero who was indirectly buffed with the most recent patch. She herself didn't receive any changes, but of course, the way that shields scale and the way they interact with health and armor, essentially any hero that has shields on them got a significant buff. So I like to see that pick up there, especially considering Decker's already off the field and they wanted to pick up their support of choice pretty early on.
Yeah, also Twin Blast and Howitzer, two solid picks, covers both the carry and the mid laner roles out of the straight away, because you've seen the support coming out from Reborn. You don't necessarily need to prioritize your support just yet. You can save that pick up a little bit later. Try get the carry of your preference. In this case, they wanted Klinghoffer to be on this Twin Blast for now, and Mamax on his most favored champ on that Howitzer. He loves that champ. You'll see him play that more than any other champ, especially with Bellica being banned out. Giving him access to Howitzer is actually a big potential issue for Reborn, because he can do a lot of plays with the mine and get into a lot of aggressive position play, which he loves to do.
Kwang Severog, big front line, a lot of initiation potential out of those two, a lot of synergy between those two as well. Obviously, Subjugate and Tether go hand in hand. If one lands, you can better believe the next one more than likely is going to land as well. Kwang was the offlaner of choice in the most recent Paragon Competitive League EU, which you and I casted, Gems. He fell off a little bit. We still have seen him, but I'm glad to see him being picked up for Frost. I still think he's just a very well-rounded hero. He has pick-off potential. He has great initiation potential. He's hard to kill. He has good lane sustain. Just a very well-rounded hero, and I think he just brings a lot of consistency to the field.
And we see a Seraph pick up here from Reborn.
There you go.
Judging by the composition, that looks to be an off-lane Seraph, with Reflect picking that up, and that's an interesting pick. It's going to be a slightly interesting composition from Reborn. They have an incredibly strong early game here with the Mural, with a Reversal of Fortune, and sort of a double carry role. It's still a double carry, but Seraph melee carry, same sort of role as you would do, but they are really lacking in wave clear. So if for any sort of sieging potential later on, Frost can actually siege incredibly well and even defend their towers incredibly well. Reborn kind of have to get sort of picks in the jungle, try to fight around the big objectives, and then try to take the towers once they win the fight afterwards, because they don't really have a great way of tower diving with the composition they have. I mean,
no, they don't.
Grux can charge in, but any sort of mine or subjugate coming out, or even a Kwang tether, and even the Thunk from Narbash can just completely halt any dives coming out from Reborn.
And speaking of Narbash, I have a feeling he's going to be the next pickup here. That's what Frost needs, is their solid support. And Narbash is going to do quite a bit, just continue to build on what you were just saying there, Jims, how their ability to dive a tower isn't necessarily the best, and Narbash is going to be able to punish overextensions and dives under tower. Thunk, Crash, Bang, Boom, you guys know his kit, and that is going to be your draft, ladies and gentlemen, right there. I got to say right away, I'm a big fan of Seraph. I love Seraph, but I feel like her biggest limitation is she can't be the front line. Now, Grux is on the table, but you compare that front line to a Severog Kwang, and maybe a pseudo sort of front line can be Narbash, depending on the pace of the game. In smaller skirmishes, Narbash can tank a deceptive amount of health, especially once it gets that Honor Pure and Quenching Scales online. But for me, Reborn, it's all about just getting picks and then pushing. Take a fight around Raptors. Towers, I don't expect to be fallen very, very quickly here in this game. I expect all the action, at least from Reborn, to come from the river buffs, the gold buff, and the Raptors. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get right into this game. Welcome to the first semifinals of the day, the best of three, as we see the teams fly through the sky. The lovely jump pads, my personal favorite addition. If those things ever get taken out of the game, I'm pretty sure there would be a literal riot. Let's introduce these teams. NATO on Revenant, J Leo on Grux, Reflect on the off-lane Sereth. We're going to keep an eye on that, something we don't see very often. Solo Nazgul on Moragesh. Look for an early Tainted Magic out of her. And Master Splinter, a.k.a. Vecron, on Muriel. And
on the side of Team Frost, we have Itzare on that Quang, Mocha Segul on the Narbash, Mamax on the Howitzer, Sergeant Floppy on that Severog, and Klinghoffer on his Twin Blast. And right off the bat, we've seen sort of the default start for most teams, getting their defensive wards, recalling, buying their starting items. And it's going to be interesting to see, because with the jungle changes, you can still make it to the river buff at level 3 for 3 minutes with most junglers right now. So it's going to be about how much health they still have, and if they can, and they're ordering in the jungles as well, because some can go white, green, and then take the green to clear the camps, but then they don't have it for the fight, and some will go across the white camps and green, so they have it ready for the fight, but it's a slightly slower clear.
It's going to have A-Ray on the Quang in the off lane here, doing the good old chopping down the minions before the, let's see if they're freezing the lane here. Appears that they didn't really pull the lane to the side, but it all comes down if that range minion gets taken out or not for the offlaner. If that range minion gets taken out, or it does get taken out, then that means your lane is going to push. Just something to keep in mind for maybe some of your newer players trying to learn the lane dynamics of Paragon and creep manipulation, which is very important inside of any MOBA. Something on the other side of the field in the safe lane, you can tell they are doing a good job. Sereth, her ability to extend outward into the lane when her wave is pushed out, especially against a Twin Blast. Twin Blast's harassment with those grenades is very, very frustrating to deal with. So I don't expect Reflect to get much out of this early game. However, I do expect Team Frost to push this tower down early just because they're Dawn. They want to make sure before 10 minutes that they have that side of the map opened up for them so that way they can rotate to the Raptors here in just a little bit.
Yeah, they're going to be freezing for the first about 5 to 6 minutes, and then they'll build up a pretty big wave with the cannon minion, the siege minion, and just take it that way. And you can really see Reflect is going to have a really rough time in this lane. Just power of Narbash and Twin Blast is high burst early game. Thunk in the first couple of stages of the game actually does a tremendous amount of damage to the health bars of Reflect. It will do about 100, I think, damage, straight off the bat. And that's, along with the grenades coming out from Klinghoffer, makes it incredibly difficult for Reflect to even stay more than like a minute or two in the lane and just try and get some levels there.
Sereth is definitely much more a farm-oriented offlaner. Not to say that she can't, she still brings quite a bit of value to the fight. 3 minutes, we see a little bit of contention over the red buff here. J Leo is going to get hit by the Subjugate and is now isolated. Uses a smash and grab. Nazgul picks up the first blood right before Leo gets taken out. It's a 1-for-1 exchange thus far, but here comes Klinghoffer, popping over to Nazgul. R2000 rocket hits, but only a level 3 howitzer. That's not much damage, and they both get knocked down at the same time. The Moragesh and the Narbash, and they're continuing. This is a very scrappy fight going back and forth. Reflect is going to ascend, get away. 2-for-2 exchange. I believe it was a mid laner and a jungler for a support and another jungler. So a fairly even exchange, but the big thing here, I feel like, Jims, is that NATO was staying in his lane farming the whole time, while Kling was actually in that fight, not getting farm out of it.
Yeah, he doesn't get farm, but he does manage to pick up a kill for himself. So, yeah, he falls a little bit behind on creeps, but as you can see, 7 points. He's already 1 CP ahead of NATO, so the kill in the end was actually worth it, even though he did miss out on a couple of those minions as well. But we're back to the standard lanings. We've seen sort of neither team really going to be doing much sort of aggressiveness probably until the 7-8 minute mark, and then when the next river buffs spawn as well, because as we can see, huge point of contention from both sides. They want to secure it, and they want to use the advantage they get from the river buff to take a fight.
It just provides you so much early game momentum if you're able to pick that up, especially the big early game ones like the that purple buff and the black buff are the ones that really provide the most oomph for your river buffs, just because that black buff does so much relative damage early on, and of course the purple buff, even if it doesn't necessarily open up ganks for you, it allows you to de-ward. And ideally, if you can get a purple buff at the third spawning of the buffs at 7 minutes, go over to that Raptor camp and make sure you deny vision of them. That'd be that's the most ideal situation around that 7 minute mark. But 5 minute mark's coming up. Leo is already in position on the left side, and you see Floppy and Mock on the other side. It's gonna be a purple buff for Severog, a black buff for Grux. both providing a little bit more kill potential than normal. Solo Nazgul, not sure if he's aware of it. He actually is able to dodge the subjugate, gets knocked up, is using the speed boost, trying to get away. But Narbash is going to land the Thunk. A landmine, any other form of CC. Well, there's one way to CC your target, and that's just a straight body block them. And that's what they did, forming a triangle around that of Solo Nazgul. And they get up the Morgesh there in the mid lane. I definitely feel like that's one way to exploit Morgesh's weaknesses, is she is one of the easier mid laners to gank compared to that of, say, a Howitzer or a Gideon or something along those lines.
Especially when you're running Sephiroth, who has the subjugate, when you have the displacement mine from Howitzer as well. You can line it up with the mine right at the beginning, so Mammoth can just walk up to Morgesh, can just use the mine, push her back into the river, line it up with the subjugate, because you know where she's going to land. The trajectory is nearly always the same once you see where the mine is going, so you can line the ability up at the same time. So it's one of those clean-cut executions you can see, and also you have the ability to just then put out a lot of damage. The R2000 rocket, the slow, means that Nazgul doesn't really have any way to get out of it. And as we can see, he's going to get punished and potentially get punished again when the next river buff spawn.
A Solo Nazgul with 2 deaths 6 minutes into the game is something we don't see very often there. I think just more so because he's really hasn't expecting the heavy rotation thus far coming out of Team Frost. Wave is pushed in. 7-minute mark is coming up here. Other side of the field. Let's take a look at how Reflect is doing. He's at 20 CS. You compare that to the offlaner of A-Ray, actually at 16. So Reflect is doing a decent job of keeping up with his farm, though, of course, I feel like Kwang, he can get a little bit more out of his kit without farm than a Sereth can. Sereth is much more, gets a lot more out of that farm here. And here comes the 7-minute mark. You do see the rotation coming out of Master Splinter, has level 3, so he has the alacrity, the speed boost, and everything you want to see to that early game Muriel. Looks like Jay Leo was able to pick up the buff here. I missed it there. Wasn't able to see what the buffs were, but it looks like it was just an even trade, one for each team.
Yeah, it was one for each team. I don't think Grux actually... I think Leo ended up using it. It was a purple buff, and he ended up attacking or placing a ward. I can't remember which. So he
Gotcha.
Dropped the buff straight away. Not going to be too much of a big deal. Won't be able to potentially get a gank off, which he might have liked. But still has a lot of options of avenue where he can go. He can try and go for the double gank on the carry support duo with Reflect. It's a really strong combination with Smash and Grab if they can land it. However, you can already see Kling and Mock are making Reflect's life incredibly difficult.
Yeah, it seems like both of the offlaners this game have been all aboard. Have been driving the struggle bus, if you will. More relying on their weak side jungle farm than anything else, and as well as the Amberlink farm that they're getting out of the juggler farm on the other side of the map here. Gonna see if there's gonna be some sort of rotation. I think I expect to see a push coming out of Frost here. They have a siege minion right now, and I won't be surprised if they try to clear out this next wave. It's essentially a wave and a half pushing down the right side of the map in their favor. They have a siege minion. It's 8 minutes. This would make the most sense for them to make a concerted push and try to take down this tower and then transition or before that 10-minute mark. We'll see what they end up deciding to do. Is right now Reflect is not in his lane. He actually was transitioned over to the mid lane, trying to get a kill. Make It Rain has been used more so as a defensive tactic to make sure he gets himself to safety, and he is going to be okay. If there's enough damage from the Hive, the ultimate from Morgesh could be enough to take him out, but now Floppy's the one in trouble here. He's able to get away. We hear that Reflect has gone into the demon form, but everyone looks like they're going to get away cleanly here. An engagement, you could tell Reborn really wanted to get something going there around that 9-minute mark. Weren't able to do so. They're going to fall back, and yeah, all the meanwhile, right lane, off lane tower is going to fall. Twin Blast farming to his heart's content. And I got to say, so far, it seems like this game is going the way of Team Frost. NATO's now engaging onto A-Ray, but A-Ray should be okay. Kwang is definitely one of the better offlaners at dealing with that ability damage coming out from Obliterate. You just hit that. You just get that on-demand armor every time you see Obliterate come out, and you negate a significant amount of it.
So what I really like from Frost, they managed, even though it looked a bit risky there, they managed to survive that fight in the mid lane. They managed to get Klinghoffer to get the tower on that far side of the map, which means Klinghoffer can now rotate with 30 seconds around to the Raptors if they decide to go for this fight at the exact 10-minute mark. As you can see, the vision isn't really there for either team. Neither team has really taken full control of the river or the pit. We can see Master Splinter just placing a ward at the entrance, but not inside the pit, so that can be quite easily cleared out as well. And it's going to be like a couple of seconds. Neither team's really going for it. We've seen this as well in the past couple of fights or matches you saw yesterday as well. Teams that go exactly at the 10-minute mark they wanted to try farm up a little bit more, then go for the Raptor when they get sort of a pick. So once one of these teams gets a pick on the board, they'll go for the Raptors in a 4v5 position where they know they can get it for free.
G Leo just peeking his head around the corner, Little Rascal style, seeing what's going on there. And yeah, it seems like both of these carries are just perfectly content farming. This off-lane tower for Frost is pretty healthy, but again, when you're on that Dawn side, that's not necessarily what you want to do. It's much less of a concern there. Taking a look at the support levels, this is around where we start to see supports approaching that level 5. Master Splinter, Reversal of Fortune is about 3/4 of the way off, and Crash Bang Boom a little bit closer here for Mach on the Narbash. He's going to be getting here maybe another wave or two. So I think that's another big timing you want to see as well as the Raptors, especially if one support is able to pick up level 5 well before the other support. That is another timing or another small but significant advantage that teams can capitalize on to try to take a big objective. Nadosic going in there, does use the Reckoning to try to isolate Twin Blast. He's moving forward. I believe he used Obliterate not that long ago. There's Obliterate, and it is going to be enough damage right there. But Sloppy's going to try to come here and get a reprisal kill. The Colossal Blow used to knock him a little bit closer to the tower. Is there a thunk? No level 5 from Narbash here. Right now, Mach is just trying to body block him. Just hit level 5, it appears, but he's just outside of it. There's maybe some graphic issues going on my side, but he was able to get away. Oh, I do believe Howitzer is going to go down. One more instance of damage from the Hive. Is it there? No, it looks like there as no Hive. He's going to narrowly able to live. Morgus tried getting the kill there, but wasn't able to do so. So Reborn comes out on top in that exchange, picks up the kill they were looking for. The strength of Revenant. You use that Reckoning, you isolate the target, and you get that kill.
Yeah, it looked like it was a position where... Wait, hold on that thought. It's Array might be just getting caught out here with the Invit Gates. No, he's going to be okay. But yeah, it was an interesting fight because Narbash and Twin Blast, they weren't... There was no Crash Bang Boom. And the power of Revenant being able to make it a 1v1 fight, or in this case, a 2v1 fight. And it makes it incredibly easy for them to take it. You see Kling end up falling, and it's a little bit awkward overall. And again, now Raptors are still up. Neither team have actually gone for it, even though there was a pick in the fight beforehand. Neither team felt comfortable taking it. Overall, it's looking strong for Reborn. They've managed to get a kill onto Revenant, which is exactly what they wanted.
Yep.
And you can see the card point lead now in his favor as well. Also, I want to talk about one of the cards, Shane. Armivore on Mamax.
Ooh, look at that. A little bit, some mana sustain.
Interesting card. Mamax really loves to pressure the other mid laner by auto-attacking quite a bit. So he'll use the R2000 rocket, and then sort of when he gets the black buff, run at the other mid laner, just auto-attack them multiple times, which will give him that sustain he really needs as well, which is it fits really perfectly into his playstyle.
Soul Nazgul just straight testing out Mamax there. Just gets right inside of his face. Got a Hive and a Curse off. Just that harassment damage coming out from Morgus. I had to say Mamax has done I would say more than a decent job at handling the lane bullying that Morgus is bringing to the table. We see a little bit of swap-arino of the off-laners and carries here, which is about what we expect. Leo Grande's turning the corner. You can tell they know what's going on here. The smash and grab as well as the challenge of the Warlord and Obliterate is going to be enough right there. Use the Reckoning, maybe not necessary, but I think NATO just wanted to make sure that his Obliterate got full damage onto that Twin Blast, secure the kill. That's exactly what they did. So Kling gets taken out 2 times in a relatively short amount of time. Now, death timers at this stage aren't really long enough to all of a sudden, okay, let's all go Raptors, especially because I think Reflect on the other side of the field, maybe they're looking for a little bit more farm on him before they really start looking for big team fights. Right now, just playing this sort of pick-off game, and just you can tell that Reborn feel like they definitely have the lane advantage when it comes to this duo versus duo here. Revenant definitely has one of the stronger lane presences, and he's actually going to pick up another kill. You got to make sure you're near those creep. Obliterate's you get that full damage, that full damage coming out of Obliterate, and it just chunks you down right there. So NATO picking up the bounties, picking up the kills, and no Raptors are not. 5-point car lead between the carry of Reborn and Team Frost.
Yeah, Mog maybe stepping his boundaries just a little bit more as that Narbash didn't really have to sort of go for the thunk. Could have just walked away and been okay. This is just the power of Revenant, and also we have to take into account he's being partnered up with a Muriel, which means that his survivability is also incredibly high. Even if he does go into sort of Netherrealm, and he has that couple, like 5-6 seconds of invulnerability, He then also has Muriel providing shields on top of shields. Probably going to have a Quenching of Thirst soon. Also is, Quenching of Thirst, Quenching Scales there. Also the Circlet of Health to give the entire team a little bit of regen to make the laning a little bit more difficult here. So Nado, even if he does end up getting taken down a little bit, will regen quickly.
And the Max is going to get hit by the curse. Reflect is actually the one who's going to pick up that kill, but the curse would have taken him out anyways. Floppy was able to get his Subjugate and a Colossal Blow on a Nazgul, but Master Splinter heard that reversal of fortune, and they're continuing to gauge. Subjugate lands on a Nazgul, but Reflect was the target they were looking for, and even then Leo Grande pops around the corner and says, "You are not going anywhere." Smasher grab, no follow-up. Reflect pops the ultimate, but even with Muriel, at this stage in the game, they got to be very, very careful. Nazgul doesn't have much mana. A Morgesh without mana is pretty much a creep. They're going to back up. They got 2 kills. They're fairly wounded. They're out of mana. And I think they're just going to fall back. And it looks like they're going to have to deal with that wave. Right lane, Reflect's going to clean that up. Get some farm. And they're just going to go back to their waves. These still really no contention over the Raptor camps here. Both these teams just looking for... I think it's Reborn is just being much more patient. Making sure that Reflect has his prerequisite farm. And on the other side, Frost definitely has... as I think at this stage of the game when it comes to the 5v5, a pretty good advantage coming out of just the nature of their draft, but they haven't been able to really capitalize on that quite yet with the Narbash and Twin Blast always under pressure. And once again, the purple buff, a double smasher grab onto 2. Klinghoffer was able to get himself away, at least for now, but it looks like Narbash is going to be the next victim. NATO 6 Obliterate, Isolation, and Decimation. Continues to be the theme here for any one of these Revenant players, and still, no rotation to the Raptors. Just like, if you're going to continue to allow us to kill your supports and feed our Revenant, we're going to be happy about that. And that seems what Frost continues to do. I think they definitely need some stabilization, to stabilize here in this safe lane.
Yeah, Klinghoffer has been put under a lot of pressure. Reborn don't really have to change what they're doing right now. They kind of can just stick doing this exact same strategy for the foreseeable future, because you can already see the lead Nado's actually built himself against Klinghoffer. 6-point lead. Raptors haven't been taken. He can carry on increasing this lead, card point by card point, until they get to a point where they think, okay, now we want to start taking objectives, and we have a substantial carry advantage here. You can also 1v1 nearly anyone on the board, and we can start turning on, because their composition, they have double carry in terms of reflect on Seraph. Isn't sort of the traditional carry, but it will do a lot of damage in late game once Reflect gets some farm. So late game looks also pretty good on the side of Reborn. However, the same can actually be said for Frost, because of things like Severog, because of the stacks, because of how survivable Iterate can be on that Quang and survive, and also how good he is at taking out carries. A single pick in sort of the later stages of the game on either side could actually win the game for both teams here.
And obviously, Twin Blast has that extra mobility involved, and he can create a little bit more distance between him and his target. Not a lot, but between the grenade spam and his ability to use that rocket jump, he has a little bit more mobility, while Revenant, on the other hand, has pretty much none. But at the same time, what we've seen is Reckoning reserved more as of a defensive tool. You see that right away. NATO uses it the moment he sees the rotate coming out here. This is a 4-man rotate over to the safe lane of Reborn. They're going to continue to look for more. Narbash goes under the tower, but Leo's going to try to keep him under there. Quenchy Scales used relatively early on. Obliterate going between 4 targets. Just sort of a little bit of spread damage there, but here comes NATO with the Hive, the Snare, as well as the extra damage coming out from the Curse. Make It Rain's going to be used, but I think Reborn's not going to care. They're just going to sidestep and continue to make the push. Leo Grande hoping for a smash and grab on the floppy right there. It was a little bit short, but they were able to once again, and the Curse goes down. Nazgul summoning the power of the jungle and gets another kill. Once again, Narbash and Twin Blast, the victims of this constant rotation. All the meanwhile, Reflect on the other side of the map, not only farming freely, but also looks like he's going to pick up this tier 1 safe lane tower against Team Frost.
It allows him to sit there and farm. This is the problem. Because of the advantage Reborn have built in the early points, these fights that Frost are trying to take end up with them falling really far behind. It looks like a good engage at the beginning, but then NATO can pop his ultimate, get into the Nether Realm, and then Muriel gives him a couple of shields, and all of a sudden, they've survived long enough so that they can start turning around this fight. The burst coming out from Frost isn't enough to take out even NATO on Revenant, and they end up getting punished for it in this case as well.
Taking a look at the farm, Reflect definitely had was deprived of farm for the first 5 to 8 minutes of this game, but The past 10 minutes, he's been so free to farm with the 4-man of Reborn being so dominant and successful, specifically isolating and getting kills in a Twin Blast and Narbash. He's now caught up actually completely with the Twin Blast. So the offlaner Seraph has equal farm with the safe lane Twin Blast. That's a good sign. That's a good metric you want to have, especially considering how bad Reflect's early game was.
Yeah, he really struggled in the first couple of minutes, and again they managed to take Raptors on the side of Reborn, so you can see again nearly 10-point difference on Nader 6 to Klinghoffer. It's about 8 points now, depending on like these fights. And well, Prime is also up. They have double carry in Reflect and Nados. Obliterate on the Prime also helps take it down incredibly quickly, along with Mural Shields giving sustain for the Prime. They can take it right now if they chose to, which is something Frost have to be really wary about now.
Yeah.
They have to make sure that this game doesn't go completely out of hand. They're already behind. They need to make sure that Reborn do not get sort of a free Prime here, because if they get a free Prime, the advantage they can be able to push with that will make it near impossible to come back for Frost.
3 wards just dedicated to the right inside of the Raptor camp from Team Frost. I was a little bit afraid that they were going to, all those were going to get dewarded and the vision from Frost was going to be restricted for a significant amount of time, and that would have further had implications regarding the Orb Prime. Looks like Reversal of Fortune was potentially looking to be used there. Reflect maybe calling for an engagement, but they called that off, and they're continuing to just recipe for success. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And that's exactly what Reborn is following along right now.
Yeah, Reflect was actually getting caught out right there, but managed to use his Ascend to dodge Kwang's sort of Judgment of the Heavens and the Fury of the Heavens as well. He managed to dodge the first one. I think he got caught by the Judgment. Then the Fury came down and he used the Ascend to dodge the damage, and that's why you probably saw the Mural getting ready to use the Reversal of Fortune, but wasn't needed. He was able to get away safely in that fight as well.
Taking a look at the build of Seraph thus far, here we don't see much of, unfortunately. Hope to see more. It's a pretty just well-rounded build, straightforward, nothing too crazy going on here. 6-point Adamant Edge, 6-point Whirling Wand with 1 kinetic and 2 casts. The good old Guardian's Ward with just a little bit of extra supplemental health. And that Spear of the Rift Hunter with pure crit into it. So the crit starting to come online. Twin Blast caught out of position again. He's going to get taken out. And now Leo Grande is here to try to follow up some more. Colossal Blow has been used. Actually knocks him out of the Make It Rain. So a little bit of overlap of abilities. You can tell that they were just trying to create some space for them to get out of this team fight. With no Twin Blast, they've lost a lot of their damage. And Nadewalda, meanwhile, over by the river buff, pretty much picks up a solo kill on the Max. But 2 kills all of a sudden here for Reborn. They were able to pick up J. Leo and Muriel, but I think it's not going to be enough here, as NATO is still healthy, Reflect is still healthy, no contention of the big damage dealers coming out. And they continue to pursue A-Ray. Nazgul doesn't have much mana, but right behind him is NATO. Is Obliterate going to be enough damage here? He's going for it, and the damage over time. Yep. The fire damage, I believe, it was either the hive from Nazgul or the fire damage from Reflect's ultimate was the one that picks up the kill. Reborn sweep the floor, get all 5 off the heels of pretty much essentially catching Kling on Twin Blast completely out of place, pressuring a tier 2 tower, and from here they can fall back and choose to do whatever they really want.
Yeah, Klinghoffer just getting a little bit caught out there right at the beginning of the fight wasn't ideal for Team Frost. This is a sort of mid-game power we're seeing here from Frost with the Revenant. He's sitting at 43 points. You can already see the power of NATO with the fully upgraded Blade of the Glory. He's got the crit bonus already online, and he's also built a little bit of crit percentage as well. Also, interesting to look at what items have been built. Thick Blood on Solo Nazgul means that the Hive isn't going to just get healed away instantly. It's going to reduce a vast majority of that healing from the quenchings that you're seeing across the board. And Stasis means that it gives him, again, that survivability he's been needing when he gets dove upon.
Continuing to just find some sort of grounding in this game thus far is Frost. We're going to see what they're going to do. One card that we're seeing quite a bit of on both sides of the field here is Stasis Gem. We see it on 2 of the 5 members of Reborn, and over on the Max, he's picked it up as well. Obviously, that was a card that was changed, lowered the cost on it, and also made it universal. And it's pretty much an ice block at this stage of the game.
Yeah, it makes it a lot more difficult. Also really useful on Master Splinter. So he can use the Reversal of Fortune, jump in, and then just stasis jam himself in case of sort of an overextension from him. Gives him a couple of extra seconds of survivability that he really needs as well to pop out an extra shield or two.
You like how I made that Hearthstone reference for you?
Yeah.
It's pretty much an ice block. I think that was literally just for you, buddy. I was like, oh, if I say ice block, he'll know what I'm talking about. Yes. Awesome. Reflect has now started to transition. He has his crit bonus online with the maxed out Spirit of the Rift Hunter with 3-point crits. That's 48% crit just from one item. Now, of course, he doesn't have the most damage online in the world. So I think as of right now, his DPS output is about the same, even with that crit online, just because he doesn't have that much power, so his crits aren't hitting that hard. But it's from this point forward is when you start seeing the damage of the Seraph. Once he starts picks up whatever his next 12-point damage item is going to be, whether it's a Adamant Edge or whether it's a Whirling Wand, expect to see the DPS output really start to come online here for Reflect. If they allow Reflect to just walk around in these team fights and swing that big hammer, it's going to be a lot of trouble. Raptors picked up here the first Raptor camp at 25 minutes, something we don't see very. Lero's going in, but oh, that could have been a big smash and grab, but the Colossal Blow right off of the heels from Floppy sort of counter-initiates that. NATO was inside of the Reckoning, so he completely negated both Crash Bang Boom and the Make It Ring. He's continuing to try to pursue Twin Blast, but he is well protected by the rest of his team. Stasis Gem used by Mamax. Again, a Mine used and a Subjugate. They're doing such a good job at controlling Leo Grande in this fight, but they can only do it for so long. The Smasher Grab finally connects. That's the third one of this fight, and Reborn, with patience and discipline, get the triple, oh baby. And continuing to look for more. That was Reflect with the triple. Just was that foreshadowing? I don't know. But he came in there, swung that hammer, and swam himself to victory right there. That was a very close team fight for Team Frost. But unfortunately, Twin Blast inside of that Reckoning, NATO was able to not only take him out of the fight, but pick up a kill on him as well. And I mean, without that Twin Blast, without that DPS and the grenade spam, I feel like Frost is going to have a difficult time in these team fights.
They're really struggling to keep Klinghoffer alive. He isn't able to put out the damage he needs to be doing. Also, on the quick note, during that fight, Mamax used the Stasis Gem to block the curse coming out of Solar High School, which was quite a nifty little trick.
Colossal Blow gets Master Splinter under the tower. He is the one who's getting swung on by Floppy. A little bit of split. Oh, the two-man Subjugate. Is there any follow-up from it, though? There wasn't. It was beautifully done, but unfortunately his team was a little bit too far away. A little bit closer, maybe a landmine from Howitzer, an R2000 rocket, anything like that. You can tell Mamax is looking for the long-range snipe on a Master Splinter, but the speed boost, the alacrity, that little mana left over from Muriel is going to be enough to create the space that she needs to get away without picking up a death. Right lane being cleaned up here by Klinghoffer. So they were, James, they were able, them being Frost, to pick up all three of those camps, but they pretty much got cleaned up with those three Raptors going over to Kling. It still is a 10-point card deficit between the Revenant and the Twin Blast here.
It is pretty rough here for Klinghoffer. It's getting to that point in the game where Revenant can, we really saw it in the previous fight. NATO on Revenant can actually just use his ultimate, put anyone into the Nether Realm and just 1v1 them. He's like, okay guys, I'm going to go take out this one target. And that instantly puts it at Frost at a huge disadvantage. We can see them posturing around Prime right now, trying to get vision. Vision control for Frost has been really good this game. They've actually been able to control a lot of the map in terms of where their wards are, seeing where the rotations are. The problem is they've still managed to get caught out a couple of times too much, which has allowed NATO to get that huge lead. And you can even see Reflect has actually got a huge lead on them as well, sitting at 46 card points. And looking at the builds as well, we've seen Mad Spell Sash coming out from Floppy, card that was recently changed to have a slightly longer range and a slightly more damage. And that was enough to bring it back. I believe it was mainly the range change, because before you can mainly hit about one person, and now you can hit, what, 2 or 3 if they're sort of in a group. You can hit a couple of people, which increases the damage actually exponentially 2 to 3 times as much right straight away, because it's doing that to 3 different people at the same time.
And it definitely helps him speed up his farm rate, stacking those souls inside of the jungle and farming souls in the lane as well. Helps out quite a bit with that, actually. And that's a very, very important thing. You want to get those stacks as efficiently and quickly as you can on Sevarog. Judging by his shoulder pads, looks like he's above 100, soon to be getting his final form here, 29-minute mark. I would say at this rate, that's a pretty standard timing for Sevarog. I think the earliest timings are like, the 25-minute max stack, but that's like just farming constantly Gonna have to see if when Floppy gets that online. But as of right now, I think he's doing a decent job, especially considering the pace of this game and how they've been on the back foot for a majority of this. I think it's pretty commendable that he's in the position and he is with those stacks specifically. He's tanky, and he gets the damage output from it.
Reborn are on this prime right away, and they're trying to actually cure it.
Nazgul used the Stasis Gem. He was able to dodge the Colossal Blow, but the Muriel Shield, is that enough? It's not. All the damage being soaked by the Morgash. Reborn are just getting crash-banged and boomed. But Master Splinter, the DPS Muriel, kill secured. Reflect is by himself. Can he get the kill? The King Cloffer, he is. But A-Ray's going to try to pick up kills as well. Is a lifesteal too much here? It looks like it all the meanwhile. Floppy's trying to get something going here too, but the shields, the lifesteal, the card experience advantage seems to be simply too much here for Team Frost. They are already down 3 members, soon to be 4, as NATO shoots the big pistol of his. And Reflect and A-Ray have been duking it out. I swear, that whole entire team fight, Reflect and A-Ray were fighting each other 1v1. But the lifesteal from Reflect is what is able to allow him to essentially sit there indefinitely and force A-Ray back. A lone Kwang defender here. Narbash is going to be up soon, but he doesn't provide much as far as tower defense. And this mid lane inhibitor, with that large of a wave, I think that's like 3 waves of range minions and a siege minion. Pretty sure this inhibitor is going to fall here. Right now, if I'm Frost, I'm saying give up this inhibitor. Maybe look for a counter push afterwards, but make sure we don't just outright lose the game.
What I really want to bring out in that last fight was the duel between Iteray and Reflect. We can already see it happening. Reflect, just so far ahead, makes it really, really hard here for us to really be able to do anything. But again, I think they're going to escape this fairly unscathed. They've got the inhibitor, and again, I want to get back to that other point. In that previous fight, you could see Reflect was actually at much lower health than Iteray, but managed to win the duel. The reason being, he timed his Heaven's Fury at the exact same time Kwang went to use his right click.
There you go.
Light of the Heavens.
Well, Alray got the kill right there. A little bit of a reprisal kill from the last engagement, but we did see all the meanwhile. Reborn was able to pick up the Raptors.
Yeah, and again, Frost going straight to this prime. Reflect is actually down. They have 5 guys up and ready here. This could be what they need to just turn the game potentially around.
Yeah, 40 seconds without pretty much the second most threatening hero on the side of Reborn right now. See what they're able to do with it. With Raptors not being on the field, that isn't much of an option. And do they feel confident enough to get an Orb Prime? Or is the call here just to maybe try to get some map control back into their favor? Judging by their positioning, they're starting to posture. They have plenty of vision around the river camps on the right side of the map, just outside of the Orb Prime. Leo Grande is now caught out A-Ray, forced to use that quenching skills very early. He gets caught out before he's able to do much of anything. It was a great subjugate from Floppy, but it was just a moment too late. Stasis Gem used by Narbash, trying to isolate and keep himself alive for the time being. Reversal portion on Nazgul as he's actually 1v2ing up until that point. But the team fight once again is breaking down. NATO sick. The damage output from him is just simply too much for Frost to handle. Whether you have Stasis Gem, whether you have quenching scales, whether you have a Narbash healing you, it's too much of an economical advantage coming out here from the Cowboy, and they're going to continue to looks like charge down mid lane and try to end this game right now, and I think they're more than likely going to be able to. Frost has their 2 important heroes online to defend a push, but I think at this stage, I don't know what they can do here, Gems. Game 1 about to be in the bag for Reborn.
Super minions pushing down as well. Make it incredibly difficult here for Frost to really be able to do anything. Mavax and Kling will have to pull something fantastic just to be able to survive this, and it looks like they don't really have much of a chance. And is this going to be what looks to be game 1 going to Reborn here?
Yep. Solo Nazgul stylistically up, Reflect with the BM core dive at the end. He's able to get that up, and Reborn, I mean, Gems, that wasn't necessarily the most flashy or stylistic win in the world. It just was consistent play. They stuck to their strategy. They drafted specific to a strategy. They executed the strategy. They never really overextended. I would say Reborn made very few mistakes that game, which is very impressive to say. Normally, even a team of Reborn's caliber, every now and then you see a little bit of a slip-up, but that was just an extraordinary clean game from them.
Especially during the laning phase, I must add, NATO consistently being able to take out Klinghoffer in lane, pushed him so far behind. At the end, you can see Klinghoffer ended 1-7. NATO 10-0-7, involved in 17 of the kills of his team. and was winning the laning. He was being an incredibly big bully, and Frost weren't really able to shut that down at any point during the game. And even in the last couple of fights, Nader was always alive. He never died in any of those fights, which made it. He was always being able to put out damage. Consistent use of obliterate on single targets just to remove them from fights made it incredibly hard for Frost to actually be able to do anything throughout the most of that game.
And the value that Muriel brought to the field with Master Splinter was I feel like fights where if that was any other support, the team fight might have not gone that way, especially with Muriel and Seraph, the synergy that they have together. Even dating back to when the knockup was still on Reversal of Fortune, Seraph wasn't necessarily the most meta hero in the world back then, but we saw it every now and then. So just a very synergistic draft with a execution in mind. They pulled it up, and we're going to see in game number 2 if Team Frost are able to shape it up a little bit. The best thing, the phrase that comes to mind to summarize game number 2 for Team Frost is they were playing not to lose. They weren't really making any sort of. It was all very, very low risk, low reward calls from them. And when you're at a significant deficit economically like that, to where team fighting is always going to be, you're at a handicap right away. I think there's a certain point where you got to say, all right, we need to get something going here, because we can't just sit back and let our lanes pushed in and lose map control and lose wards, or just kind of slowly lose the game over a course of time, which is essentially what happened in that one, Jims.
Yeah, there's a couple of opportunities they could have gone for a sort of a risky prime. It would have potentially ended in the game if they got caught, but they had a point in the game, I think Reflect was dead, so it was a 4v5 position. Yeah. Of course, we have a bit of cast division, so we can see the fact that Reborn were actually in their base, but I don't know how well Frost actually tracked it, if they had any knowledge of where Reborn were at the time, which might have influenced why they didn't go for that play. Because if they knew Reborn were near their base, they could have just taken that prime for free at that point in the game.
Well, guys, we're going to get into a game number 2 here to see if Frost can keep themselves in contention, or if Reborn are once again book themselves to a final. I don't even know how many they've been to at this point. I'm sure we're in the double digits, to be honest. Don't quote me on that. Going to cut it to a small break. Hope to see you guys soon. Don't go anywhere. !Matcherino. We'll see you guys in a few minutes.